Hi, a good day to everyone. Today I'll be discussing about the Gauss-Seidel and Krauts methods as well as its implementation using the C programming language. I'll be discussing first the Gauss-Seidel method, also known as the Liebman method. It is defined as an iterative method used to solve a system of linear equations. It is an improved version of Jacobi's method, considering the maximum number of iterations required to converge and accuracy. With that, we have to understand first what is a linear equation. It is an equation in one or more variables where each term's degree is not more than 1. That means a variable x may appear, but neither any higher power of x such as x squared nor any product of variables such as xy may appear. Any linear equation can be put in the form of a1x1 plus a2x2 up to an xn equals to b, where x1, x2, and xn are variables, while a1, a2, an, and b are constants. As I have said, it is the improved version of Jacobi's method. So let's take a look with their comparison. Jacobi method uses the values obtained from the previous iteration. Since the updates could be done simultaneously, it is also called as simultaneous displacement method. On the other hand, Gauss-Seidel method always applies the latest value of the computed variable in solving the current unknown. For that reason, it is also called as successive displacement method. So here are the steps to solve a given problem using the Gauss-Seidel method. Using these following equations, step number 1 is arrange the equations in such a way that the diagonal is dominant, which means that for each equation, these diagonal elements must be larger than or equal to the sum of the non-diagonal elements, regardless of the sign. With that, this will be our equation 1, equation 2, and equation 3. Step number 2. Isolate each unknown that comes together with the dominant value. Applying to the given problem, these iterative formulas will result to the following equations. We have x1, x2, and x3. For step number 3, for the first iteration, to solve for x1, we will be using these given initial values. Substituting these values to this equation, x1 will be 5.842. As I have said earlier, we will be using the latest value of the computed variable in solving the current unknown. So to solve for x2, we will be using the computed value of x1 and the initial value of x3. So for x2, we have negative 6.880. For finding the value of x3, we will use the computed values of x1 and x2. So x3 will be 1.077. Step number 4. For the nth iteration, use the latest value of the computed variable in solving for the current unknown. For any iteration, the same rule shall be applied. Always use the latest computed value in solving for the current unknown. We have here the values of x1, x2, and x3 up to the fifth iteration. We can double check these values when we execute our program. Before we proceed with the program execution, let me walk you through the scope and delimitation of the program. Scope. The computer program created, which is in C language, can perform Gauss-Seidel iteration for the system of equations given. The user can provide the number of iterations, and the program will be executed, which will output the value of unknowns along with the number of iterations provided. The limitation of the program. The program can be applied to any matrix with non-zero elements on the diagonals, but convergence is only guaranteed if the matrix is either strictly diagonally dominant or symmetric and positive definite. If these things under the delimitation will not be considered, our program might fail or give an erratic result. So here's our program for Gauss-Seidel method using the C programming language. We have here the header files, hash include stdio.h, stands for standard input output. Hash include conyo.h stands for console input output. After we arrange our equation in a diagonally dominant way, we are going to define our functions in terms of x1, x2, and x3. We are going to isolate each unknowns that comes together with the dominant value. We also have here our main method. If our computer is going to execute our program, it's going to read all the code inside this main method. We also have here the declaration of variables I and n. I is used as a counter in counting the iterations, and n is the number of iterations. So as you can see, we use the int data type since we're only going to use integers for the variables I and n. We also have here the declaration of variables x1, x2, x3, x10, x20, x30. The first three variables are the variables in our formula, and the latter are the variables for the given initial values. Here we use the float data type for the numeric values with floating decimal points. Here, we use the CLS code to clear the previous output of the program. This printf statement will basically prompt the user to enter the number of iterations, and scanf code will look inside this n variable. These following printf statements will just print the header of our table, and then we are going to set the given initial values x10, x20, x30 equivalent to 0. We also have here our for loop to calculate all the iterations up to n. And then the computed values for x1, x2, and x3 are stored in x10, x20, and x30, and the process is repeated after the nth iteration. These following printf statements will just print the values of our x1, x2, and x3. So now, let's execute our program. As you can see, it's asking the user to enter the number of iterations. So I'll choose 5 and then enter. And it will show the values of x1, x2, and x3 up to the fifth iterations. To double check these values, let's take a look with the computed values in our presentation. So here, x1 for the first iteration is 5.842. Here, 5.842. x2 is negative 6.880, negative 6.880. x3 is 1.077. x3 is 1.077. So therefore, we can say that our program shows the same results with our computed values. Now, I'll be discussing about the Krauts method. This method is based on the fact that every square matrix A can be expressed as the product of a lower triangular matrix and an upper triangular matrix. To illustrate further, let's consider this 3 by 3 matrix. We have matrix A and its factors matrix L and U. For Krauts method, the diagonal elements of matrix U are all ones. Executing the multiplication of L and U matrices will result to the following equations. With this, the elements of L and U matrices can be determined. By equating the corresponding elements, we obtain these following equations. In general, the elements of the matrix L and the elements of matrix U can be determined from these equations. So here are the steps to solve a given problem using Krauts method. Step number 1. Decompose matrix A into L and U matrix. As you can see, we will use the same equations that we use for Gauss-Seidel method. We will put these equations in matrix form and will be set as matrix A and matrix B. We will now solve for the L and U elements using the formulas that we have obtained. The numbers indicated shows the pattern or sequence of solving the unknown values for L's and U's. As you can see, the elements of L are calculated first because they are used for calculating the elements of U. So here are the equations that we are going to use for each respective numbers. So here for number 1, we are going to look first for the L11, L21, and L31 using these equations. Next is number 2. We're going to look for U12 and U13 using these equations, and so on and so forth. Since we have determined all the elements of L and U matrices, we can now solve for y using the formula L times y equals to B. Using forward substitution, we'll arrive to the following equations. For y1, y2, and y3. Substituting the values in the equation, we will have y1 equals to negative 32, y2 is equals to negative 6.119, y3 is equals to 2. Lastly, solving for the unknown x's, we will be using the formula u times x equals to y. From the previous step, we used a forward substitution. And now, for this, using the backward substitution, we will arrive to the following equations for x3, x2, and x1. Again, substituting the values in the equation, we will have x1 is equals to 2, x2 is equals to negative 5, and x3 is equals to 2. Again, we can verify these answers during the program execution. Before we proceed with the program execution, let me walk you through the scope and delimitation of the program. Scope. The program can solve a given system of linear equations with the application of Crouch's method. Upon program execution, it will prompt the user to provide the values of matrix to be decomposed. The given coefficient matrix will be factorized into a product of upper and lower triangular matrices. The resulted values of L and U will be utilized to find the solution of X and Y matrices. The limitation of the program. The program fails if any of the diagonal elements of matrix L is 0. Further, factorization of matrix A is possible, provided that all the principal minors of A are non-singular or non-zero. If these things under the delimitation will not be considered, our program might fail or give an erratic result. So here's our program for Crouch's method using the C programming language. We have here the header files, hash include stdio.h stands for standard input output, hash include conio.h stands for console input output. We have here our main method. When our computer executes our program, it's going to read all the codes inside this main method. Here, instead of using a variable, we will be using an arrays for a bunch of numbers inside matrix A, L, U, V, Y, and X. We use the float data type for the numeric values with the floating decimal points. Here is the declaration of variables I, J, K, and N. The first three is for the row and column elements of the matrices, and N is the order of the matrix. We use the int data type since we're only going to use integers for these variables. This printf statement will prompt the user to enter the order of the matrix, and this scanf code will look inside the N variable. This printf statement will prompt the user to enter all the elements of matrix A. We have here a for loop to repeat the process up to N. For this printf statement, it will help the user to know what particular elements to enter. After we obtain all the elements of A, this printf statement will prompt the user to enter all the elements of matrix B, which are the constant terms. For this part, this is where the elements of L and U matrices will be calculated. Using the general formulas provided during discussions, we can derive these following formulas. For this set of codes, this is for the L matrix. And these set of codes are for the U matrix. This set of printf statements will show the lower and the upper triangular matrices based on the calculated values. Since we all have the elements for L and U matrices, we can now find the Y matrix using the formula L times Y equals B. Using forward substitution, we can derive these following formulas. The same goes for the X matrix. Using backward substitution, we can derive these following formulas. And now let's execute our program. It shows the user has to enter the order of the matrix. So for the given problem, we will be using 3. And then it will ask the user to enter all the elements of matrix A. So for our problem, it's A11 is 4, A12 is 22, A13 is negative 13, A21 is 19, A22 is negative 13, A23 is 4, A31 is 8, A32 is 8, and 83 is 17. So we all have the elements of matrix A, and now we have to enter the elements of matrix B, or the constant terms. So B1 is negative 128, B2 is 111, and B3 is 10. So after I click the enter, it's going to show the L and U matrix. So here is the lower triangular matrix, and here is the upper triangular matrix, as well as the Y and the X matrices. So to double check these values, let's take a look with the computed values in our presentation. So here, let's compare it. As you can see, we have 419.8, 419.8, 0, negative 117.5, negative 36, 0, negative 117.5, negative 36, 0, 0, 22.855, 0, 0, 22.855. For the upper triangular matrix, we have 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 5.5, 1, and 0, 5.5, 1, and 0, negative 3.25, 0, negative 0.5595, 1. And negative 3.25, we're going to round up, negative 0.560, and 1. And for the Y matrix, we have y1 equals to negative 32, y1 is equals to negative 32, y2 is negative 6.119, same here, negative 6.119, and y3 is 2, here y3 is 2. And finally, the value of x1 is equals to 2, the same here, it's 2. x2 is equals to negative 5, here it's negative 5. And x3 is equals to 2. Here, x3 is equals to 2. Therefore, we can say that our program shows the same result with our computed values. And with that, I hope you've learned a lot, and thank you for watching.